of the August meeting minutes. Did anyone not get an opportunity to review the meeting minutes? Okay, do we have a motion to accept the meeting minutes as written?
So moved.
A second motion?
Second.
Okay, so the August 8th meeting minutes as written are accepted. So we'll move on to the committee reports. Amy here?
I can do that.
Okay.
She's caught in traffic.
Okay.
So the Domestic Violence Coordinating Committee met on September 8th. And the had a presentation from Jennifer Mercer talking about landlord-tenant laws and how that relates to domestic violence. They also talked about some mental health resources available in Baltimore County. They're meeting again in October, and Lisa Jordan from the Maryland Coalition Against Sexual Assault will be giving a presentation about laws taking effect October 1st that affect domestic violence, sexual assault. As far as the work group updates, the only one with substantive information is the Abuser Intervention Group, which is chaired by Shelby Fink from Family Crisis Center. Is leading that subcommittee, and they are talking about standardizing reports between all the AIP providers to bring some clarity and standardization to that. And that is it.
Great. Does anyone have any questions? Tanya or someone from Forensic?
Good morning. We had our forensic work group committee meeting on September the 13th. And basically the big topic continues to be those awaiting transfer to state hospitals. At that time, we had 22 people waiting. So Judge Davis was on the call and she assured us that the judiciary is working hard, trying to get some movement on those individuals. I'm not really sure what the count is this morning because we had to come here. However, Friday was about 13 people waiting. So that continues to be a big topic. We do have healthcare access. Maryland coming back to the jail now, and they're doing services, case management services, and getting offenders connected to medical insurance before they get released. So that had ceased during COVID, but now we have resumed.
Questions? Questions for Tanya? Thanks, Tanya. Corrections. Jennifer and Nicole, I think you guys were going to present on the conference that you went to for pretrial.
Okay. Just some general overview topics. They presented on the national standards of pretrial release. There's an online PDF of it that's extensive that has a lot of information on their National Association of Pretrial Services Agency, if anybody's interested in that. One of the other topics that they talked about was creating a roadmap for success for defendants that are released in the community so they can access it through the website, so they could see a blank sample of a release order, instructions for supervision, and key contact information if they're released without their paperwork.
They started a session discuss validations and here the point is that let's validate risk assessment and validation should die. Risk assessment should be validated every 5 years. Should locally validate risk assessments for fellowship first. Commonly discussed was that even with validating across the states are having the same issue of getting pushback from the trial release based on assessment. So it's an issue with not just here, but of course statewide. Risk assessment utilization model should avoid the following essential recommendations, Mondale recommendation, and any recommendations. And also risk assessments cannot identify people who are more likely than not to commit a violence.
For release decisions collectively, the standard would be for least restrictive non-financial conditions to be imposed that assure court defense rates and public safety. Some of the agencies nationwide are still making recommendations. However, there's a push to move away from that. we're above the curve when it comes to that. Another trend that we talked about was some jurisdictions reporting success rates on their levels of supervision versus just a category of risk. So that was a really interesting concept that we looked at. Then
Then the overall goal for pretrial bonds rates is safety.
And then just for measuring outcomes, the performance, the risk classifications, and their failure to appear rates or no arrest rates during supervision, so that you can review policies and make changes based on those.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on that? Okay, so we can move to the presentation. Jim did send me an email. He's stuck in traffic as well, so we'll skip him for now and we'll move to the mobile crisis team, which would include the police department and the health.
Good morning, everyone. My name is your bus driver. Do you have presentation?
This is your PowerPoint, correct?
Yes. I hope so. I'm not a Boy Scout, but I do have.
Captain Brian Shanks for the Baltimore County Police Department and Allison Palladino from Affiliated Sante. Affiliated Sante is the vendor that partners with the department to run our crisis response system. And it's a much closer long-term relationship than the word vendor would really convey. Allison has been our partner leading this effort for a long time, developing the pieces, all the different pieces which they are going to skitter through pretty quickly. But I think one thing we want to emphasize this presentation is this is a system. It has lots of little components over the years as different agencies and communities and experts have identified the gaps that people fall through. We have been patching in ways to address those and make it effective. So,
good morning, everyone. I think that was a great introduction, kind of our system. Next slide. So, again, this is a partnership between Affiliated Sante Group and the Baltimore County Police Department. The entire program is funded and administered through the Bureau of Behavioral Health through the Health Department. Just to let you know a little bit about the system, we'll probably dive into with the criminal justice diversion with the mobile crisis unit. It's kind of a focus, but it really takes the whole system to make this work. So we operate a 24-hour hotline, both a local line as well as we are in partnership with a current rather new regional effort, formerly known as GBRICS, now Central Maryland Crisis Services. We obviously offer our 24-hour mobile crisis team, which is a co-responder unit partnering specially trained selected police officers with licensed mental health clinicians. Then our in-home intervention team, which is a little bit of a follow-up model. We offer an urgent care center, which is kind of like a behavioral health, like stop in to get a diagnostic evaluation. We'll get more into that. Critical incident stress management. Sorry, we really like our acronyms in the service. And a relatively new 911 call center clinician program, as well as community education. So looking at the goals of the system as a whole, we really are in place to divert from hospitals, divert from unnecessary entry into the criminal justice system, reduction of, when possible, unnecessary inpatient hospitalizations. The co-responder model is really built in effort to get patrol back to what they need to be doing and get our specialized unit on the scene to help individuals in crisis. We really are looking at linkage. We're not a long-term system per se. We want to get in, stabilize the current crisis, and then look to all of our community partners to get them linked up for ongoing care. And then, of course, we can educate clients, families, and community organizations on services available. So our operations center is 24 hours a day. We're located in Timonium, physically staffed in the building, fielding calls. We function as both a hotline and a warm line. When I say that, I mean it's a hotline where triaging incoming calls, risk assessment, safety assessment, determining what level of care is needed, and making a refer either to our internal services or to establish connections in the community. As a warm line, there are those individuals that might need an additional level of support to remain in the environment in the community, so we can offer that support as well. We might have folks that, you know, call in and let us know what was on the phone that day. And if that helps them feel supported and connected, then we can offer that service to them as well. That's kind of it in the our mobile crisis team. I want to turn it over to the captains to talk a little bit about.
The key thing about our mobile crisis team here in Baltimore County is it's called a co-responder model. We, you have a specially trained police officer paired up with a licensed clinician. A lot of licensed clinicians are LCSWCs, so licensed clinical social workers. We do have some licensed clinical counselors too, correct? They're all master's level licensed through the Maryland State Health Department. When we say specially trained police officer, every officer has to go through the 40-hour crisis intervention team training by CIT International. It's a national best practices program. The officers have to attend the 40-hour course, and then there's a battery of scenarios that they have to successfully pass before that we consider them successful. Then they also have to attend ALSCOP, the acronym CISM, Critical Incident Stress Management. Here in Maryland, we're fortunate that we have the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation, the ICISF. Every officer and clinician has to successfully pass a 3-day course in critical incident stress management through the ICISF. We also have the team membership. Allison's folks through the health department are deemed with the CISM team for Baltimore County. So not just a criminal event such as mass shooting, but even if we have like a natural disaster like a hurricane or tornado come through Baltimore County, we are designated them as the CISM team to respond for Baltimore County government. And then in addition to those two things, we have Training Safety Day every year. We close the entire program down. We send every officer and clinician down to the training academy at CCPC Dundalk. Everyone goes through about 4 hours of classroom exercises, updates on ADA law, any safety techniques that we can do verbally by PowerPoint. There's lunch, and then the last half of the day, we make everyone go through scenarios. And we pick the partners, because let's be honest, if she's my buddy, I'm going to pair up with my buddy to make it uncomfortable. We switch everybody around just to see how they react, how they interact when they're on the call. So a lot of times our guys and girls are almost like baseball players. They'll have codes. If we know we have to take something for an emergency petition, be prepared. This is what we're going to have to do. Or if we think we can divert, they have other stuff. Anyway, so everybody feels comfortable with each other. Plus, we teach other clinicians how to use the police radio. They are not trained in self-defense. So please don't think that. We teach them to get out of the situation as soon as possible, but they are equipped with one of our police radios, so they can call for help. Mobile crisis is 24/7. Over the years, I know Meg was very kind and didn't mention it, and now I'm not throwing you under the bus. But the Baltimore County has a lot to hang their hat on. We've had this program for over 21 years. We are one of the leaders when it comes to the co-responder model in the nation. We have had folks from all over the United States, Canada, Australia, the Netherlands, France, come and inspect our program, do ride-alongs. We literally just had a lady from Australia, New South Wales, I think it was, this summer come and do a ride-along with us and check out our model because she was impressed. There was a very big critical incident that day. Actually in Towson, when she got there, she could not believe the way that we did the critical incident stress management. When I say everybody, not just the mobile crisis team that was on, but even the officers, the detectives, and how everybody was, hey, only limit needs to go in, not just for evidentiary purposes, but to not get exposed to the trauma. There was a child involved in that incident, so everybody was very careful. Hey, you have kids, don't you go in. Okay, you and I are single, we want the children that will go in. And it's very good. She could not get more impressed about that. She was licensed clinical social worker in Australia. She was through their EMS services.
A little bit about how MCT may show up on the scene is, about 80% of our calls are coming to police communication. So someone makes a call into 911, patrol might respond, get on scene, or while they're in group, as it comes up, our teams can be called out. But they get on scene and they say, you know what, I'm not sure, someone's calling about somebody keeps breaking into my attic, it's repeated call for service. Bring the team out, the team becomes primary because they've decided there's a behavioral health issue on scene. They can send patrol back to service, and then they can work with the individual. The goals of the team are to manage the crisis in the least restrictive environment. We're going to use any informal, formal supports to develop a client-driven safety plan. This is an effort, again, back to our goals, with hospitals, with the justice system, and we're typically operating at over 60% diversion rate. There are going to be those times where we determine an individual is not going to be safe, and then we take the necessary action.
For destigmatization, our officers wear what we call a low profile uniform. They just wear a black polo with the Duke County Police logo. This is the officers. Black polos, Duke County Police logo, khakis, and then they drive in unmarked cars. So that way, if patrol does get there first, we don't keep the police car sitting in front of someone's house. It's just an unmarked Ford Explorer sitting there. And then I always joke, and then two folks dressed like Jake from State Farm walking out. Saying, the nosy neighbor, and everyone knows they have, we're staring out the window, why are the police there for so long? Report writing, everything, we write every report we go on, we have to write a report. The police officer will write a very basic report, they say basically, I came, I saw, I conquered. Clinicians, on the other hand, will write a very detailed report. What's the possible diagnosis? What medications they're taking? What doctor are they seeing? Difference is anything I or my officers write is public record. Anything else that her clinicians write is HIPAA protected. It has to be subpoenaed if they need to get that information. So there is a very different, and then we get access to information on the clinical side if there's a threat to self or others. Otherwise, it's lock and seal with analysis, separate record management system.
I'll just make one quick comment on the records. The police reports are public, at least if it's not an open investigation, but we do make further redactions, to the extent there's health information. We can go and scrub it a little bit, but the biggest gain is by avoiding putting it in there in the first place, keeping it to the extent possible with the clinical and medical information out.
Okay. That's right, Chris's. How we get dispatched through 911, through the ops center, and then if we might get prompted if we get another request from county government, if someone's from the county executive's office, from the chief's office, or any of your offices, that way. Sarah and Tanya, we do a very good job of working with BCPC. If there is someone who's going to have to be charged based on what they committed, we will call Tanya, let her know that this individual was coming to BCPC. We've done a pretty good job of talking to our technical units in the precincts and out of headquarters so that they also know. And then the second thing is we work with the mental health board, Michelle Fuller and Jessica Rubitz, I maybe say her very strong. We work with them and referring, they've actually come to our office and given us training on the whole mental health board and how it works. And we liaison with the 10 precincts on that as well. Next slide. Teams are now. We're such a 2 years ago.
This just gives you a quick overview, and you guys are all going to get a copy of the presentation and the types of wide variety of types of calls that we can handle when the mobile crisis team is called out. Sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. One thing that's important to note for the group is our success is really dependent on established relationships with community providers. We talked about, relationship with Tanya. Like, we really need to sit on a lot of different work groups and committees to ensure that everyone's working together to assist the people in the county. So that really, while we are our own agency, it's really important the relationships that we have with providers. Next slide. One thing for our inappropriate requests, we just like to get out there ahead of time. If an emergency petition has been completed, that's not really for our teams. Again, We want to use our resources where diversion is possible. If someone has already decided that an emergency petition is required for the individual, that is going to go to patrol to serve that petition. We do warn any provider if there's any medical issue, alcohol overdose, somebody's already, in process at the time, do not wait for us to call medic. We'll be right behind them, but, do not wait just specifically for mobile crisis. They still require medical attention.
That being said, we work with Amanda Wenzel and, supervisor's name, in the fire department's behavioral health team also very well. So if there's someone who's chronically on the 911 system that requests EMS, we work with them also to try to get that as well. Secondly, all of our officers, every officer in the Mobile Crisis Team goes through training as recruits in what's called ICAT, which is de-escalation training, and then we do a version of mental health awareness training for the recruits. So they are aware of all the different systems that we're talking about, whether it's Tanya's folks at BCDC, Captain Fire Department, her folks. Speaking of inappropriate calls, one of the things to remember is our officers pair with a clinician, so that clinician safety is important. We have a situation where somebody's armed with a firearm, a sharp-edged weapon, something like that. We will back the team out, and then we get our crisis negotiation team, which is a separate ad hoc team of the agency, who will come in and then try to negotiate that individual out as peacefully as we possibly can. Then the mobile crisis team will take over to try to do an assessment if necessary, and take the individual to hospital as well.
Just another photo, kind of team in action, next slide. This we just thought was important to show, we do once a year an annual police satisfaction survey as well as a client satisfaction survey. This kind of demonstrates patrol's view on how much time will save them. The next slide identifies client satisfaction. And I'm just trying to be mindful of time. I apologize for running through this so quickly. Next is Urgent Care Center. So as I mentioned, Urgent Care Center, it is located in Timonium. We offer these services 12 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. Here, folks can come in and get a full diagnostic evaluation by an independently licensed clinician. And then if it's appropriate, they can be referred to one of our prescribers for medication purposes. This is not an ongoing clinic. It's a one-time shot. We can provide transportation to and from that appointment. We can also provide medication vouchers. So again, really looking at Verdi, we don't need to go and present the ED. They can come to our shop and we can get them started on the way to care. We will follow up for medication purposes as long as the individual is making efforts to get linked. Sometimes there's a delay in getting a prescriber in the community. We're not going to start meds and drop. Next slide. The in-home intervention team, this is our internal clinician-only team. We really view this team as bridging the gap from the initial point of crisis to full linkage in the community. These clinicians will go out and meet someone in the home environment. They can do some brief therapeutic interventions where the effort is to maintain stability for the individual or family, but they can also do quite a bit of case management. They can come and sit down, help clients fill out the forms required, they get benefits and efforts to get enrolled. If there are any kind of peripheral needs, we can assist with, housing, food, shelter, those kinds of needs as well. So that's what this team is. CISM, critical incident stress management, Brian touched on. This is where there is a large scale event in the community. Unfortunately, we live in a time where these things happen. All of our law enforcement, as well as all of our outreach clinicians, are trained in this model. We can go out, do a debriefing, defusing, kind of talk to individuals about what you may experience after witnessing such an event, how to practice some self-care, monitor yourself and your loved ones to determine if a higher level of care is needed, and obviously we'll bring those resources as well. The CISM is a little different than CIST. CIST is what MCT does, where they're immediately on the scene. CISM is a pre-scheduled event. We call our hotline and we'll coordinate. We have a point of contact and in effort to get those services delivered to the community. Our 911 call center clinician program, relatively new this past May, was our 1-year mark, where we are putting licensed mental health clinicians in the 911 dispatch center. This is again a pilot to divert first responders from behavioral health when not necessary. So they are actually in the center, and then call takers and dispatchers can transfer needs that are behavioral health in nature straight over to the clinician. And hopefully the effort is that the clinician can handle the situation telephonically, and then they can also obviously refer back into our larger system. And then we just wanted to give a little snapshot of kind of the volume that we're doing, shows each of the departments. It is important to note that we will follow up with every individual as long as they're still willing to engage with us. So while we are experts at the moment of crisis, we really truly believe that follow-up is what stops them from coming back into the circle. We need to ensure, we can make calls to everyone. Did you pick up your medication? Did you go to your first therapy appointment? As long as they're still willing to engage with us, because again, our aim is for long-term linkage in the community. So you have all those statistics. This just talks a little bit, I think important for this group about our abilities to divert from the emergency room, criminal justice system, and diverting from an emergency petition. It's important to note, if you take a thorough look through the statistics, we're very careful in how we capture our diversion statistics. So if I go out on a call, I get called to Brian's house, and there was a intent or talk about suicide. This is something that could possibly resulted in the hospital or emergency petition. We were able to engage them in a safe manner. So that would be counted as diversion. If I go out, and sorry, Amy, but you're just right in my sight. If I go out and Amy is really experiencing some anxiety over some family or work issues, there was never a chance that this was going to involve a hospital or the criminal justice system, then we count those as NA, because we really want to accurately capture our diversion statistics. So just when you take a look at it, that's how we capture it. And then the next few slides just give you a glimpse at kind of the interventions that we're able to use, what types of focal issues we are looking at when we are called out for the mobile crisis team. These are case statistics in terms of length of service and our behavioral health linkage. And again, I'm just going to let you take a look at those on your own time. Outcomes, dispositions when the case is closed, and the types of referrals that we are making. And we really kind of jammed what's normally like an hour really quick. So if there's any questions, or if you have any other questions, our contact information is on here. Please know we do take third-party calls as well as individual calls, so community members can call. And if you're not sure, just give us a call, and 24 hours a day, someone's there to pick up the phone and answer questions.
And all services are free.
Yes, access exact point time.
Yeah.
Maryland, the state of Maryland is moving to fee-for-service reimbursement for crisis services, but we have over 20 years. This has been entirely grant funded through the generous county funds, state funds, federal funds. So we'll see what's going to happen in the future. But right now, there's no charge and nothing to preclude any Baltimore County resident or anyone experiencing crisis while in Baltimore County from accessing these services.
Chief McCullough asked me to address that this morning. We just learned that, and I don't think the chief's had a chance to bring it up to you, Rebecca, that we learned that the state health department is moving to try and move to a fee-for-service model. They want to do that to leverage federal funding, which is understandable. However, we have our co-responder model that's evidence-based and has a great track record. In order to qualify for the federal funds, they have to put two clinicians, I guess. One peer support person in the car with a licensed clinician, with a police officer. And that really is a non-starter for the police department. For safety reasons, for operation reasons, part of the role of the crisis team is to transport someone to the hospital in that unmarked de-escalating car, but you can't put two people in the backseat. You can't put that client in the backseat. Listen, the police officer can't protect two people, in a crisis situation. So the grant funding that we currently use is for the health side, the clinician side. The county is funding the police side, but it will really blow up our system if that is applied across the board. Now, there are components of our system that could go to that fee-for-service model, but not the mobile crisis team or responder. The other problem with charging is a lot of our calls come from third parties. The neighbor sees the person out naked in the front yard. They call. Well, you're going to send them a bill? They're not going to call again. It's a short answer. And the person who the service is being called for, they didn't ask. So I mean, bills. So we're really very concerned about that. And I don't know. And yeah, what we can do about it, but it is a serious concern.
We really want to advocate to keep the team. I work for affiliated Sante Group. We operate all different kinds of teams. We have civilian only teams, we have other police-based teams. There really is an extreme value in the police-based teams. We can go to more high acuity calls and be there in the moment rather than waiting to get on scene. It's remarkable, some of the dialogue that's going on nationally. There are times we will go on calls. I haven't been in the car quite a few years, but I would go on calls with my partner and approach the client. They want nothing to do with me. They're not crazy. They don't want a clinician. They want to talk to my partner, the officer. And the officer gets right in there and engages with the client. So it's truly a really remarkable team that we really want to keep.
Allison and I worked typically about 3 years ago with a body worn camera video of an individual in psychosis. His mother called because he was walking around the house drilling all the cabinets, the bolt or the screws closed. She called, the team walked in, officer and clinician. The son, crisis, started screaming, "I hate the police. I don't want to talk to the police. Get out of my house. Get out of my house." The team, you can see, used the level of speech. They used their de-escalation skills. The male officer started to develop a rapport with the guy. We watched 45 minutes of body worn camera video. By the end, we thought this officer and this guy in crisis were best friends. I mean, the guy didn't. That's the beauty. The guy thought he was talking to a social worker. He did not realize the person he was talking to was our officer, not the clinician. And when it was all said and done, he slowly walked to the car, went to the hospital, the mother grabbed some things, and met him there. It was just a beautiful example of how this program works. I apologize. I could talk about this all day. I know I was quiet, but I think Allison has got the big cane to pull me.
Sorry.
So does anyone have any questions about the program that we did not address? I'd like to know. Sure. So.
Go ahead.
If you have an in-house intervention team, how do you deal with those that on the street, like homeless folks?
I hit.
Homeless individuals?
Yeah.
Is that the question? We can work with the homeless population. We really like to work together with our community partners. So we work very closely with Prologue, for example, their outreach team. And sometimes we'll coordinate with them to meet on site with various pieces, because they'll reach out and like, we need to kind of connect with this person. So it's a case by case basis. We are limited by the resources around us, if that makes any sense. The shelters are full. We can't magically make resources appear, but we really, one of the things we do is we maintain a database, which we update quarterly of all the available kind of not only behavioral health providers, but also non-behavioral health, homeless, food banks, legal resources, et cetera, because we need to have the up-to-date information to relate to the findings. That answers the question.
Well, the reason why I asked the question is that if the shelter are full, we from corrections get those folks come to us, and I think it is imperative that we in Baltimore County start thinking about how we can increase maybe a shelter for those that have no home, because when some of those folks that come to us, they are really in bad shape. And again, we try our best to serve them, but I think working together, as I explained here with Diane and the group, I think it'll move us forward.
So one thing I can add to, our CIT training, we spend about half a day at Prologue, where we take all the officers, we take them out of their comfort zone. We do a tour of Prologue, then we take the entire class. They have lunch with all the individuals that are willing. In fairness, Prologue does tell all the residents, hey, this is what's going to happen this day. If you are willing to participate, it's a free lunch. We'll be running tons of pizzas. Those officers or the officers and the individuals at Prologue, we're purposely are made to interact with one another. So all the cops can't sit, it's not a high school cafeteria, football team table, soccer team, but no, everyone has to integrate and then sit there and talk about shared experiences. A lot of the folks that are there have had negative interactions with law enforcement. So the whole point is for them to have this open dialogue, ask questions, get this out. Then the officer learn, but then the individuals also learn why the police do certain things too. But it's also to share, hey, these folks are people too, they're out there. Some have mental health issues, some have addiction issues, some may just choose to live on the street for whatever financial reasons or whatever it may be. And it's their right to do so. And that day is usually one of the most rewarding. That's what we get when we do the satisfaction survey at the end. Like, what you think about the training? That is usually everybody's really resistant to do it. They do it. They actually love it. So that was the most rewarding.
And I just want to commend you guys for the work you do from top to bottom. Good to see you do Lieutenant over there. Just the work that you guys do as a team, it's tremendous. I've had a chance throughout my career to see it evolve from the very beginning to where it is now. And believe me, there's no bigger fan of this program than the cops on the street. Because they save us a lot of time, and they deliver, as you can see, they deliver quality services that the average person is not equipped to deliver. And it really does save us in terms of manpower and hours. But even at the basic level, one thing that impacts the police department is our repeat calls for service. And what they do is they reduce our repeat calls for service to these people because, as many of you know, these people, without being properly handled, properly treated, they just continuously call the police department. It's frustrating for everybody involved, including the client. So thank you guys for everything. We appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Does anyone else have any other questions?
We've got a hand up from April Lewis, who's joining us remotely.
April.
Everyone, representing Baltimore County Schools. And I don't have a question, just a comment, and just want to thank the mobile crisis team for the supports that they provide to schools. I don't think I heard schools mentioned, but they often do interact with schools. I hope that we have reduced the number of inappropriate calls. That was an issue several years ago. But very often, mobile crisis supports us in the evening when we get threats involving students, and they're right there to perform the assessments that allow us to move forward safely the next day. So just thank you and kudos to your team for the great work you do, even supporting us sometimes when we've had a loss, maybe a staff member, and the offer to provide support to us in those instances as well. So thank you.
Thank you, April. Appreciate that. We do a lot with TBCPS, and April's our right-hand person. With school safety.
I know we're short on time, but I want to reach out to each of you to invite you to come to the district court for our mental health court, and also to talk a little further about some specific issues that we have sometimes cross-jurisdictionally with Baltimore City and some other counties. So I would really love to have a chance to reach out and have a further conversation with the rest of some of the folks from the district court involved.
Absolutely. That's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you both. That was a great presentation. Okay, well, we only have about 13 minutes left. Do you want to push your presentation to the next meeting since we're not rushed?
We could probably do that because it's got a little bit of to it. What do you think, Ms. Megan?
Oh, I would defer to Tanya for the mental health.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I want to make sure we have time for this discussion too and not split it in half. So if there's more discussion on the police presentation, mobile crisis unit response, I think this would be an appropriate use of our time instead of trying to rush through.
I
Correct.
was gonna say, in that case, I have more questions. It may have been in the slides with the data that we didn't really get into, but there's been a lot of talk since the COVID era, about increases in mental health, trauma, suicides. So what are you seeing in your data about the calls that you're going out to, pre-COVID versus now? And,
I think in my professional opinion, it's a two-pronged thing that's happening. I think a positive is that the stigmatization of needing mental health and behavioral health services has greatly reduced. I mean, I'm not a spring chicken anymore, but I remember back in the day, it was like, do I want to talk? Like it's a much more open dialogue and people are more open to seeking services. I will say that post-COVID, we have seen the acuity increase dramatically of individuals. For obvious reasons, folks with behavioral health, whether it be mental health, whether it be substance use, isolation, and kind of new world that we're living in is not helpful for many of those individuals. So it kind of just can exacerbate symptoms, especially for a while everything was being done in telehealth. You think about recovery support groups not being held in person, where for many individuals that is what keeps them, safe. For date programs, etc. So I think there was definitely an increase in acuity. As folks have said, I've been there a very long time. We'll just leave it at that. But the cases they're really wild lately. So.
The one thing I would add is, this appeared not, was looking at our stats a while ago. Children and adolescents and the elderly seem to be hit the hardest. And then one of the biggest things was the reintegration. We had a lot of folks that were on telework or telecommuter, I think you call it. That was difficult for a lot of folks to go back to the workspace, and it was the comfortability of being at home, being in comfy clothes, around your own belongings, and this and that, and then the fear of one going back and dressing up and going back to work, all the normal stress of work, plus the fear that, hey, I know I take care of myself. Did Allison or Kathy, my partners, are they safe? Should they get masked up? Is it cold? Is it COVID? That added stress really did affect a lot of folks. I know one of the journals that we looked at said there was going to be a tsunami of mental health. There's a tidal wave. I don't know if it's tsunami or whatever. There was an increase to it. But then in schools, I know April's on here. I'm sure April will give you a whole litany of issues at schools, whether it be elementary school or high school. They definitely the education folks definitely earned their keep after COVID for sure.
And then my second question is, do you look at your data with an equity lens? You're looking at disparities. I know with youth suicides, we're definitely seeing disproportionality in the data with African-American youth.
One of the things that we've been our mandates at the very beginning of the whole program, and over the years, we're being kind, over the 21 years, there have been a series of expansions of the mobile crisis team and other elements of the program. Mobile crisis team, the way we have it, that we've sort of delineated, is there's an east side team, a central county team, and a west side team. The west side team stays west, the east side team stays east. Traditionally, the lion's share of our costs for mental health are in the Dundalk Essex precincts. But we do see them in Knoxville as well too. But for fairness and equity, we keep the teams that they don't travel. Central team, depending upon how big the issue is or the severity of what we be holding, we will allow, I think, soccer terms be a sweeper card. But the east side team stays east, the west side team stays west. That's how we can be fair with the services. Otherwise, we probably see all three teams on the east side a lot more than we do.
And I think too, diversity and ensuring equitable across services. Not only do we as the vendor do that internally, there's a lot going on with the state, where the state is now pulling data and helping to make recommendations. I think, again, I know I keep repeating myself, but community partnerships are very key. Because when, even when you're going out and dealing with an individual in crisis, first of all, crisis is defined by an individual, first and foremost. Then you do have to take into consideration the kind of cultural context of that individual and how best to work with them in crisis. And we really try to do a lot of training with our clinical staff and invite in our partners on that. Particularly in Baltimore County, we have pockets of very specific different cultural communities that can engage in our religious groups in the counties. There are important advocacy groups in the county. But we kind of have all those folks at the table to help guide us in how we go about this services.
I know we're trying to talk about time. A couple of years ago, we went to our in-service trainings, and one of the questions our officers were asking us is, why does it seem like mobile crisis is always busy or never available when I need them? Kind of the old adage of, how come whenever I need a cop is not around, but yet I'm speeding, and all of a sudden there is. We get that murder. What we did was we took the Western Patrol Division at the time, and broke it down by each post. And when I say a post, means that we have a dedicated police car, police officer to respond to anything in that little geographical area. On our 3 to 11 shift, which tends to be our busiest for us for mental health calls, there were between 48 50 plus. This is back when we started Central Division 2. So on the west side, there were 48 posts. We, Allison and I, and Kathy have one mobile crisis team with one officer and one clinician. I'm not advocating for anything you're saying. Just the laws of physics, geography, all apply to them too. Red lights, we have to stop. So if we're in Catonsville and a call comes out in Owings Mills, it's going to take a minute to get up there. Plus, we triage based upon the severity, as Alice did a very good job explaining. What we respond to, what type of crisis. If there's a licensed clinician, medical staff, or a doctor, they've already recruited emergency petition, or one of our officers at EMS gets somewhere, somebody's already ingested some kind of fluid that's toxic, they need a medic, they need to go to the hospital right away. That's a no-brainer. Our officers are already trained in the police academy, how to write an emergency petition. There's no assessment necessary. That individual needs to go. So save us for the ones where, hey, if we can crisis plan and save that individual from going to the hospital, that's a win for us. So like a lot of the department keeps stats on arrests, traffic tickets. For us, it's only trying to prove a negative. That's our goal. If the crisis plan is what we call a win. So if we save somebody from going to the hospital, we're not sitting there where you take yourself out of a tree, build a tree house. That's more important. That's the Medicare needs to be taken care of first. We shouldn't be sitting there, so it probably doesn't need to be there for mental health reasons. We have other avenues, as Allison said, our resource sheet is front and back, and they update it quarterly. We have all kinds of resources.
So 2 quick points to add to that. One is that because this is a system with one little professional vendor, the known people that we know, when there's a crisis, that information is available. They can figure out, oh, this is so and so, and then there's a more familiarity and they would tailor the response. And the clinician in the 911 center, which is our newest component, helps with what Brian was talking about with, what's the right response? Do we need to send NCT, or is there another possibility? And it's still an evolving program. We're still working and integrating 911. It's hard to link in, but 911 asks for very good reasons, call scripts and cards that they need to work through. So we're working at integrating. But the hope is that we can get more and more success of having a clinician kind of doing that triaging and everything, so we can put the right resources really quickly.
I feel like we totally hijacked your meeting. I apologize. I really thank you for the opportunity. It's a really valuable resource that you have to remind folks is out there. And so thank you for the opportunity to give me that.
And I know we already talked about the district corporate. If anybody else wants us to come for any kind of professional development or training or anything like that, we have all kinds of presentations put together, whether it's something like this, for free, just tell us whether we need a laptop and, projector. We have that stuff in our office to bring that, but, free training, I just want to make sure that, and for community events, if anyone here wants their personal life, any community event, religious, organization, we can come up with that there too.
Thank you. Is the attendance sheet floating around?
I haven't read it.
Thank you. Did anyone, okay, so we don't have any roundtable updates. Okay.
So you
So,
passed me the addendum sheet. I got here a little late. I apologize for that, unfortunately.
no, it's okay. So next meeting, the December meeting, will start with corrections. And we're going to extend this topic into our February meeting just to make sure we have enough time for all the presentations. So we originally had mental health court for the December meeting, the state's attorney's office, and the public defender's office, but we probably won't get to all of that. So we'll just cap it at corrections and probably mental health court.
I'm going 2025.
Okay, great. So if there's nothing else, we have a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Do you have a second motion?
Second.
All in favor? All right, today's meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.